Well, I want to talk about the ELD-X bullet. A few years ago, I did a video on that, comparing it to the Nosler AccuBond long range, and I've not seen anybody have any actual long range data as far as what it does to an animal when it impacts them. There's a lot of gel tests out there. There's some closer range stuff. I was fortunate enough to take a cow this year. I hit her 3 times out of 4 shots. Not exactly where I wanted to hit her, but it did the job. I was able to recover 2 of those bullets. Distance was 625 yards on the first impact, and the last one was about 660, maybe 650, right around in there. So I've got 2 bullets here. I'm going to walk over to this picnic table, kind of put them on the snow so you can get a good backdrop on them. Hopefully they don't sink. But just take a look at this view right here. This is over top of Bear Lake, Utah. I'm on my way to Kentucky right now. I decided to make this the backdrop for the stop. Actually, I've got the plastic bag that I had them in, so I'll just put that on top of the snow, and then hopefully you can see that. That'll make a nice backdrop for it. All right. So this is the 200 grain ELDX. The one on the right here was my initial shot. That went into the hip, blew the joint apart, blew the bone apart, and I've got some pictures of that. I don't have a scale, so I can't tell you weight retention, but it's going to be below 50%. So the one on the left right here, you can see it's got more of the shaft on it. That impacted just below the spine, and obviously neither one of these bullets completely passed through. This one did retain more of its weight. I'd say probably half to 2/3, maybe even 3/4 on that one. I'm not sure. Had to go get behind the door of the truck. It's getting a little bit chilly out here with the wind. It was -4 this morning in one spot. But, I've got a couple of pictures that I'm going to throw up here. One is the entrance hole for the last shot, which was the bullet on the left. And if you look real close, you can kind of see where the first impact went in on the hip. It was pretty dead center, so it took that joint apart. And then I've got a couple pictures of the joint itself that I'm going to put up here, and then we'll talk a little bit about the impact. So on that first one, you can see where that bone got completely blown apart. According to ballistic calculator, it'd be shooterscalculator.com is what I use. At that distance, with that load out of that rifle, I was having around 2,100 foot-pounds energy on impact. So I was kind of surprised that it actually stopped the bullet where it did. I guess that's just a really hard, heavy bone and a lot of dense muscle back there in the hip. I thought it would have more penetration, but it did anchor her down until I could get a couple more shots into her. The second shot that I hit, I could have probably found it. I just didn't feel like digging around the guts. And the reason for these shots so far back was my first shot I had misread. I thought it was 2 feet off to the left, and so I was aiming 2 feet to the right, and hence the impacts, and also adrenaline flowing. Anytime you get an elk in your sights, you're going to get excited. If you don't, you need to stop hunting, because it's well, unless you're trying to put meat on the table, but just the adrenaline, I guess, is part of the reason that we do it. And then on the bullet on the left, it went in just below the spine, and I'm not sure how that one came apart. When I opened up the chest cavity during the gutting, there was a lot of white powder, I'm assuming bone powder, and then I was also finding small fragments of bullet, just little flecks, just barely on the tip of my finger, both lead and copper. her whole chest cavity was full of blood. And once that hit went down, she dropped, flopped around for a little bit, and then she was done. So even though it was a little bit farther back than what I would have liked, it did the job pretty quick. My assumption is that when it fragmented, it went through the top of the diaphragm, entered into the chest cavity. The lungs weren't overly blown apart. There, you know, you could see some blood had gotten into them, but they weren't deflated by any means. But something happened on that third shot, and that was lights out for her. She was out in 15 or 20 seconds. So they did the job pretty well. I think if it had been a chest cavity shot, it would have been a complete pass-through. I found these just under the skin on the offside. Well, with the exception of obviously of the hip. I pulled that out of the bone joint when I opened that up. So unfortunately I didn't think to take a picture of that. I was just trying to get her quartered up and get her out. But if you're looking for a good long range hunting bullet, I think these are a fantastic option. This is at least the third long range animal that I've taken. I've had a small black bear 4 years ago, which I referenced in the other video. That was a 435 yard shot, complete pass through. Granted, the bear was only about 140 pounds, but they are pretty tough, and that was a right through the chest cavity, a perfect broadside shot. And then I had a bull elk, which you can go back and watch that video, down in Utah in 2020. That went right through his neck, and he dropped on the spot. That was a 353 yard shot. Obviously, neither one of those bullets were recovered. Complete pass-throughs on both of them. I'm trying to think if I've shot any other elk or animals with it. Nothing's coming to mind. So I've been using the 190 grain AccuBonds long range for quite a bit on these, especially on lighter animals. So, but as always, I hope this helps you out. I know there's not a lot of actual videos done on this, like I said, and so if you're wondering what this bullet actually does, this is a 200 grain. You can load 178 grain in a 30 caliber. You can go all the way up to I think a 212 is the heaviest on the 30 cal end, before you start going up into a different style of bullet, which is the A-tip. And then you can get 230 and I think 250 in a 30 caliber. So very high BC bullets for the weight. So hope this helps you out. Till next time, happy hunting.